Brendan, give us an idea of what you found out. We know that this started at about 9 o'clock tonight. There was a meeting inside Emanuel AME Church, and we understand that a shooter went inside that church.
Yeah, it was a possible Bible study, as I'm told, Carolyn, and this is certainly a very fluid situation right now that we are working, because this shooter, the person who allegedly did this inside the Emanuel AME Church, is on the loose right now. Just minutes ago, police gave us a description. It was a white male in his 20s wearing Timberland boots, jeans, and a t-shirt. They say he came into that church and started firing, and he is on the loose. As you can see, police have this area on lockdown. No one's going anywhere. This is as far as we're going. We have seen several pastors. We've seen Wendell Gilliard. We've seen several men go in there talking with police right now to Emanuel AME Church. Don't know what was said, but we do know it is not good news. We have our team coverage. We're continuing it with News 2's Matt Elba. He's been down here working this since about 9 o'clock tonight. That's when the shooting happened. Matt, you have more. You've been able to talk to several people. What did they told you?
Well, Brendan, when I got here, we got here a little after 10 o'clock. Right when we got here, we were a little bit closer to the scene. Police pushed the scene back to right where we're standing right now in front of the Shell station on Meeting and Calhoun Street. Right after they pushed us back, I went across the street to the Marriott courtyard. This is, again, right on Calhoun and Meeting Street. We went across the street to the Marriott courtyard. I spoke with a man. I asked him if his family member was injured. He told me yes. I also saw an African-American woman who appeared to be in her 50s. She was crying and screaming as she went into the courtyard Marriott. This is about an hour ago.
Let me say this is the worst night of my career. This is clearly a tragedy in the city of Charleston, and we are all praying, and our hearts go out to the victims and their families, as well as this entire community. At 9:05 this evening, we received a call of a shooting that had occurred at the church here on Calhoun Street. When officers arrived, they found a number of victims inside, and we had also individuals that were transported to the MUSC Emergency Trauma Center. As the investigation continued, we were able to determine that there were 8 deceased individuals inside of the church. 2 individuals were transported to MUSC. One of them has died. So at this point, we have 9 victims in this heinous crime that has been committed.
It is a most unspeakable and heartbreaking tragedy. In historic Emanuel AME Church, the mother church of the AME churches, people in prayer on a Wednesday evening, a ritual, coming together, praying and worshiping God, to have a awful person come in and shoot them is inexplicable, obviously the most intolerable and unbelievable act possible.
Sadly, we can tell you among those killed tonight is an elected official, State Senator Clemente Pinckney, 43 years old. Senator Pinckney, who was a representative at one time and who rose through the ranks, born and raised here in South Carolina, just a shining light in the community, who was the pastor at Emanuel AME Church. Great soft-spoken person, but one of the biggest voices you would ever hear. Gunned down, and was with his congregation, with his church family tonight when he was shot and killed.
We're hoping to get some new information, possibly an updated description of this suspect, a white male in his 20s, wearing a gray sweatshirt or long sleeve t-shirt and Timberland boots. He had a sandy blonde hair or a light brown hair, and that is the best that they have been able to give us. Octavia, it is I don't know how to describe it. It is a very quiet morning, quieter than normal as the city tries to come alive here and get the workday going. But it's a tough thing to wake up to. And unfortunately, on this date, we've woken up to similar news before, with 9 firefighters being killed on this date 8 years ago. And today, we're mourning the loss of 9 people inside of a church who just went there to pray when that gunman walked in. Dave?
Thank you, Brad. We woke up today and the heart and soul of South Carolina was broken.
An emotional day in the Lowcountry. 9 people are dead after a gunman opens fire during Bible study in an historic Charleston church.
Why did you do it?
Shooting suspect Dylan Roof is now in police custody as we continue to learn more about this terrible tragedy. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Carolyn Murray in the News 2 studio.
And I'm News 2's Brendan Clark here downtown Charleston. Behind me, the AME Church. 9 people horrifically killed last night just after 9 o'clock. We have anger, we have sadness, and we have heartache. All those emotions tonight. A church shooting that has left 9 people dead. It happened at Emanuel AME Church in downtown Charleston on Calhoun Street last night around 9 o'clock. Several new developments in the last 19 hours that we want to tell you about, including the suspect caught in North Carolina and being brought right back here to the Lowcountry. 21-year-old Dylan Storm Roth was arrested in connection with the shooting. Charleston's police chief says a citizen's tip led to that arrest. Word coming down just after 11 o'clock this morning, local police arrested Roth in his car in Shelby, North Carolina. Shelby is 245 miles away from Charleston. It is above Charlotte, North Carolina, about a 4-hour drive from Charleston. Late this afternoon, Coroner Ray Wooten held a news conference where she identified victims of this horrific shooting. 9 people, as we now know, gunned down, including State Senator Reverend Clemente Pinckney. Now, officials have called it a hate crime. Mayor Joe Riley called it pure, concentrated evil. We have team coverage of this story, the victims, the suspect, everyone affected by this tragedy. We want to begin now with News 2's Travis Rice, who has been covering the story since it broke last night. It happened just after 9 o'clock. A lot of people still struggling to get their arms around this and exactly what happened. We heard Governor Haley get very emotional at her news conference.
That's right. Governor Haley at a midday press conference at around 11:30, they announced the capture of the suspect, Dylan Roth, as you mentioned. And it's one thing, I've been following the story pretty much since the morning. And what's interesting to see the evolution of the press conference is 6 a.m. police coming out saying this is the suspect, 7 a.m. police giving the details, and finally at 11 a.m. police announcing that they got their man.
This was certainly an emotional appearance for those families and for everyone in the community watching.
It certainly was, Carolyn. I have, of course, done my fair share of bond court hearings over the years, but this was different. Family member after family member of the victims of the shooting got up and addressed Roof directly, offering their forgiveness.
I forgive you. You took something very precious away from me. I will never talk to her ever again. I will never be able to hold her again. But I forgive you. And have mercy on your soul.
You know, I forgive you and my family forgive you. But we would like you to take this opportunity to repent.
New details about what happened were in the court affidavit. Roof entered the church at 8:06 p.m. wearing a fanny pack. He took part in a Bible study with members for about an hour before he pulled out a handgun and began shooting church members. He stood over one witness and made a racially inflammatory statement before leaving. Roof's father and uncle called police to identify him after seeing his photograph on TV. In court, another family member of a victim told Roof,
"Although my grandfather and the other victims died at the hands of hate, this is proof. Everyone's plea for your soul is proof that they lived in love and their legacies will live in love. So hate won't win."
I want to go back inside the TD Arena where the services will begin in about 50 minutes, just shy of an hour. News 2's Carolyn Murray is anchoring our coverage from inside. Carolyn?
Yeah, Brad, Octavia, thank you. Certainly, it's an opportunity to speak with people who had personal relationships with State Senator Reverend Clemente Pinckney. And Cassie Watson is one of those people, a member of Emanuel AME Church, who worked very hard in that church, who knew Reverend Clemente Pinckney very well. I, unfortunately, am standing inside the area with the media, so I apologize, Cassie, for having to speak with you from inside this area. But you certainly knew Reverend Clemente Pinckney very well. What are your thoughts being in this venue right now, having to pay your respects to someone who I'm sure you thought would be with you and serving Emanuel for a lot longer than he was able to for, what, 5 years?
Well, Reverend Pinckney was a very beautiful person, very easy to talk to. You could go to him and talk about anything, really. Yeah, we did look for him to be with us much, much longer. But God has his way of doing things.
A gracious farewell.
How sweet the sound
For a holy man.
that saved a wretch like me.
The president leading a chorus for Clemente Pinckney. TD Arena overflowing with people in love for the state senator and reverend.
Slain in his sanctuary.
And a moving eulogy the Low Country had been waiting to hear.
Oh, but God works in mysterious ways.
President Obama delivering the word.
God has different ideas. He didn't know he was being used by God.
Friday's message from the Reverend President, grace.
Myra Thompson found that grace through the example of their lives. They've now passed it on to us. May we find ourselves worthy of that precious and extraordinary gift as long as our lives endure. May grace now lead them home. May God continue to shed his grace on the United States of America.
Cynthia Graham Hurd passed away in the shooting. Also, Daniel Simmons Sr. Passed away in the shooting, was 74 years old. There was a ministerial staff member of the Emanuel AME Church, regular attendee of the Wednesday Bible study. Obviously, he passed away during Bible study. Tawanza Sanders, again, there's Cynthia Graham Hurd, entered into eternal rest. Now we're up to Daniel Simmons, now Tawanza Sanders, and certainly we want to remember all of those, and we have been. Today, obviously, is a day set aside for Clemente Pinckney as he is laid to rest officially. Tawanza Sanders, 26 years old, graduated last year from Allen University. Very moving yesterday as the choir, the men of Allen, were coming down the streets of Calhoun singing, and I think everybody was really moved by that his university, his fellow brothers there from Allen came to pay their respects. We also remember Susie Jackson. Susie, the oldest, 87 years old, a longtime church member, sang in the choir. She and Ethel Lance were cousins, so we are talking about family members losing family members in this terrible tragedy. Also, we remember Reverend Payne Middleton Doctor from Hollywood, South Carolina, entered into eternal rest on Wednesday, June 17th, a day that we will all remember. Reverend Doctor, mother of Grayson, Kaylin, Haley, and Sana Doctor, and the beloved daughter of Reverend Leroy and Francis Middleton. And again, just one of those that we will always remember. Mrs. Myra Thompson was 59 of Charleston, also in the shooting, passed away. Myra leaves to mourn a loving, devoted, and cherished husband, the Reverend Anthony Thompson, one son and one daughter, whom she cherished, Kevin Singleton and Denise Quarles, and many, many, many other family members who are continuing to pay their respects. Ethel Lance, Ethel was laid to rest yesterday officially in a funeral, and also Sharonda Coleman Singleton, also laid to rest yesterday
in a funeral, was a part-time minister at Emanuel AME and also a speech pathologist at Goose Creek High School. So the high school family, Goose Creek, certainly mourning her as well.
All right, Rob. Yeah, all beloved members of the community, many just still, in shock, grieving how this could have happened last Wednesday night.